Greetings.
Hello.
Are doing today a collaboration on growing up military brat, what it was like.
That's what we are,
Gonna
military
go.
brats.
Yes.
Yes. So welcome to our channels. Of course, we will link each other's information in the description below. And I know last time we did a collab, there was background noise. That was my son. I'm sorry. We fixed that this time. He's quiet now. So we should be good.
There's always a chance he still pops in.
Yeah, but that's fine. As long as there's just not super noisy background
Cool.
movie stuff. So we are going to go over like topics, and then we're going to go over some what would you call that?
Some negative stereotypes
Assumptions
that
and
exist.
stereotypes. So first, we'll just go over some topical issues here. That's probably not the right word, issues. But anyways, first one would be grocery store. Where do we get our food?
Versus commissary.
Yes.
In the military, we used the term commissary. We just grew up with that. On base was a huge, they always were big. Very nice, lots of variety. Commissaries. It's a grocery store. Like around here, we have Food Lion. Of course, we have Walmart, Safeway. But on the base, as they call them, commissaries.
Yes. Yeah, I remember like telling my friends like, "Oh, we got to go to the commissary," and they'd be like, "What?
What's that?
What are you talking about?" I'm like, "The commissary where you buy food." And as a little girl, I didn't realize that people didn't know what the commissary was unless they were part of the military.
Yeah, we grow up. It's the way it's true with any kid. You grow up accepting the world that you're in, not realizing how big it is and how much there is to it. One of the neat things that the commissary was really good at, and as far as I know, they still do it, was they have baggers. That whole bagging line. When you go up to check out, not only are they checking you out and bagging your stuff, but there's always the option of paper and plastic. Most grocery stores just have plastic.
There's not many stores that offer paper
Whereas
bags.
the commissary was big on paper bags because you could keep them, reuse them, bring them back.
And that's what we would do. We would reuse them for all sorts of things at home.
And that's going back into late 80s that I remember.
Right.
Through the 90s.
And
2000s.
Those baggers, they didn't just bag your food, because some grocery stores do that, now too. They'll actually take your groceries out to your car. They had a special cart, so it's not your regular shopping cart. They had a special cart,
grocery baggers cart,
to load up. And then, of course, you would tip them.
You should tip them. You didn't have to, but you should, because that's all they got. They didn't get paid.
Right. Yeah. So normally they were like other military brats, like young people.
High schoolers, yes.
Sometimes military wives.
That's true.
There were some military wives there that would work that. But yeah, I remember like whenever we would go to other stores, and it was so weird to me that we had to carry our own groceries out to the car. It sounds so like bratty, doesn't it? But I was so used to that I was like, oh, this is weird.
It was very first class.
Yeah.
One of the other things that was big in the grocery stores, the commissary, was coupons. They were serious about coupons. I remember Mom loved getting the cereal coupons. General Mills was really good about getting military cereal coupons because she could get a box of cereal for 50 cents or $1. And when the stuff is, and honestly, it's not that much more today than it was then.
Right.
$2 to $3, even $4 for some of them. That's how it was back then too. So if you got 50 cents or $1 for cereal, a house of 6 kids, that was big.
So yeah, we did most of our shopping at the commissary. Very rarely did we go to like Walmart or Safeway or anything like that.
When we were growing up, Walmart wasn't that much of a thing.
It really wasn't, I guess. It didn't get popular until we were teenagers and such.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like Food Lion would have been more popular than Walmart back then.
Possibly. And that's in this area. I don't know if Food Lion's out west. It's an eastern thing. Also, prices were really cheap on base as far as the food. Like meat especially. I remember Mom and Dad talking through the years, and they loved getting grocery store the meat at the commissary because it was just so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the military just got a good deal on it. So.
Right. Yeah, and it's really useful. Like all bases have the commissary and BX just because, sometimes there are stations.
Every standard base.
Yeah, sometimes there's stations that are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
and it's too far to drive to a grocery store anyway, so commissary. Next, explaining where you are from.
This one's big.
Yeah, so everyone asks that to other people.
Missionary kids can identify with this too.
That's true. So whenever you get that question, or whenever I get that question, I always stumble and kind of laugh, and I'm not sure what to answer. Where am I from? Because to us, like, I mean, what does that really mean? Where do I live now? Where did I grow up? Where was I born? Because those are 3 different answers. And so that's why it's hard to answer that question. So I usually say, well, I'm a military brat. So that kind of answers the question why I'm not answering your question completely. Born
Lived
in
a lot of
Washington,
places.
live the most in Delaware currently, but it's a pretty close tie to another state. And then, yeah, it's a long story to explain where you're from.
Yeah, for an example, I have a list. Born for me, and I'm the oldest, so I have like the biggest variety.
Yeah.
Born in Florida, only lived there about 2 years. Moved to Japan, lived there 3 years. Then to Washington State.
Where I was born.
We lived 1 year off base in Edelweiss Lane, Lacey, Washington, and then we moved on base and we stayed there for the next 5 years. To a cross country trip that took up about a month, I think a whole month. Anyways, Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, 2 years. California, Southern California, in the desert. We lived a year in California City, so off base, and then 2 years on base. Then Dad retired, moved out here to Delaware, and there was a whole adventure of when we first moved here because of miscommunication. Dad thought he had a job, didn't have it when he arrived. That's for another video, though. Yeah, that could be a whole video. And so Delaware, and then I went off to college, but they continued living in South Carolina, and yeah. There you go.
My parents are still in South Carolina, and now I'm back here in Delaware.
So, if you had that list that I just read of places that you've lived, where would
you
say you're from?
Yeah, like now, what is your answer? You know, like can you say like I'm this?
I can say I'm from Florida because I was born there.
True.
But
you can always say that.
Growing up, the longest we lived was Washington State, 6 years.
Right.
So I could say that.
Yeah.
But now Delaware has been my home for 11 years total.
Right.
So I'm from Delaware, but we also had South Carolina.
Yeah, and that was a long time.
And that's a really neat place, and that's where my family lives. My mom and dad live there now, so we're from South Carolina. All over the place.
Yeah.
From all
Typically,
over the place.
if somebody asks me, and I'm not in Delaware when they're asking me, like if I'm traveling or whatever, and they ask me, I'll tell them I'm from Delaware. Because I'm not in my home state, they're wondering why I'm there. So I'm like, I'm from Delaware. But if like I'm in Delaware and people are like, oh, where are you from? Then that's where it's a longer answer. All right, next one is, did we ever get our parents in trouble with the military or commanding officer?
We specifically did not.
Not us, because we're
siblings
amazing.
Did. Our siblings did. Looking at you, Jacob and Jared.
Yep, those are the 2 culprits. The youngest boys.
Now, do you remember the story really good?
I think I remember that Jacob wanted to go for a bike ride. And how old was he? 5, 4?
Probably 4 or 5. Yeah, 4. Probably 4.
And I think he was used to going on bike rides with his older brothers, right?
Yeah,
like
we usually rode around.
The street.
The neighborhood was these really big, it was a big giant figure 8, kind of. A big section of row of houses and another row of houses, like C-shape, I guess. So there's this big open parking lot between the 2 sections of houses. So Mom could look out the front window and see us the whole time, so we were usually allowed there. As we got older, though, me, James, and Joseph, as long as we were together, or me and James, we could take our bikes and go on the streets around the neighborhood. So that would be out of sight. Mom didn't want Jacob or the younger ones going. Well, one day Jacob was on his tricycle, and, you know, little 4-year-olds don't always pay attention to what they're told. He was supposed to stay, and I probably told him to stay. I don't know. But the 3 of us are just having fun. We're enjoying our bikes. We start riding off, and we turn right out of the neighborhood and go down to the main road. The main road goes through the neighborhood to the main gate. Well, near us, the housing gate. And we were off out of sight. We did not realize, and Jacob's following us on his tricycle.
Oh, so he's kind of like further behind. You guys didn't realize.
So once we're off, and he's on his tricycle out there on the main road, he's like, well, I'm going where I want to. He heads right to the gate. The gates are manned, you know, by military police. So they see this little kid riding up, and they're like, "Oh boy, what's going on?" Aww. And they call in, and a cop car shows up and picks Jacob up, takes him back, and he's able to direct them home.
But my parents got in trouble.
Dad especially.
For that. Yeah, my dad got in trouble for that. They had to go to like parental courses. Yep. Like, what did they call it? I don't know exactly.
It's probably different names. It's
yeah.
Family policy center. I don't even know.
Yeah, basically it's for negligent parents. It's like, this is how to be a parent.
Or parents
You
who are
know?
worried, especially moms who the husband's deployed, or
Yeah.
if the wife's deployed. It's a help. It's supposed to be there to help. And if there are situations that come up, like maybe there's a divorce, you know, it's to help with families that are having troubles.
Mm.
So, you know, it's just default rules. Parents had to go there, but they very quickly, the people there really quickly realized these are great parents. They don't need to be here.
I think initially they were given, like, you're going to have to go to this course or whatever
2
for
months
X amount of time. And then they went there a few times and they were like, you guys are fine. It's all right. We understand this mistake. You're good parents.
It happens,
it's fine.
exactly.
Yeah. Not that parents who go to this are bad parents. I'm not saying that.
Like I said, it's there for help.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
The second, do you remember the second
I
one,
don't
Jared?
remember the second one.
It's where we lived in Guam, and our neighborhood was just a couple streets away from an open field, basically, where there was a plane, a big B-2 bomber. It's one of the old World War II bombers, really long and thin, long wings. It's stationed out there on display, static display, in the middle of the park. And we always drove by going to the commissary there or to get gas right around that. So little Jared would have seen it out the window. And just one day while we're at our house playing outside, we're all not paying attention. Jared decides to trot off. He's like, I want to, in his head, he told us later, he wanted to go see the plane. So he trots off. And he knew you just go down the hill, cross the street, cross the other street, cross the grass, cross the main road, and then there's the plane.
Right.
Well, the grass and the plane. Well, as he's crossing that other main road, military police happen to be coming by. I'm like, what's this kid? And he's in his t-shirt and diaper.
I thought that there was some sort of like picnic or something from a group of people that was going on out there.
If there was, I don't remember.
Because I think I remember that he actually went up to that group of people and was like, oh, just, mosey on in here to this little party. And I thought someone gave him like a drink, like a soda or something.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
the drink part.
Someone gave him a drink, like a Pepsi or Coke or something. I remember that.
I don't know.
And then somebody was like, wait a second.
Whose kid is this?
Whose kid?
Ask around.
Yeah.
Kid's not here.
Yeah.
But he was brought back by military police, so.
Yeah.
Dad would have got in trouble there.
Right. All right, so those are the 2 times that we got in, or not us, but yeah. Military child privileges. What are our privileges? So that one is the military ID, great privilege, and that lasts until you're 20 or 21? Or 18? I might be 18.
You can figure it out with the date on this one because it's expired when I was too old. I want to say it's somewhere near.
I think it's 18. I think I remember.
I can't remember.
I feel like it's 18 because I don't think I had it much longer after I graduated.
Well, if I was born in 84 and this is 2005, are you better at math than I am?
What year did I graduate? I
That's,
don't even know.
That's the date, 4 September. That's my birthday, so 2005. Let us do math.
Us homeschoolers doing math.
Well, see, it's like my weakest. Oh, stop! My weakest topic is math. Oh, that's wrong. That is right.
Today's year.
21. I thought so. Yeah, 21.
Oh, that's 21. Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking it was 18. All right.
So it goes for a couple years.
Yeah, so the benefit of that is, like, if you're not even living at home anymore or whatever, you still get those military base privileges to get on base and shop on base for those better prices and just items that just aren't in other stores, even, up until you're 21.
Yeah, for us growing up, before Walmart, it was the BX.
Yeah.
Or PX for Navy guys, but for us, it's BX. That's where you got really good deals. And they had just about everything, kind of like a little Walmart.
Exchange now?
Basic exchange.
Basic exchange.
Which is what BX stands for.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of just a logo change that they've done.
Okay.
But there's a lot of stuff on base. There's a bowling alley. There's usually a gym for older guys, girls. That's useful. Library, which we made good use of that.
There's always a gas station.
Yes, and the gas is always a lot cheaper.
And there's usually like a few fast food restaurants like McDonald's and Subway and Burger King. Usually the typical ones.
Oh, and the military bank.
Yeah.
They had a really nice setup. Like, and of course this is when I'm older, but just what they allow you to do is easy to set up accounts and stuff. I remember they could set up accounts for us as kids. We were pretty young.
I remember Mom setting up one for me.
So there's just all those just little. It's like kind of like a little city. There's normal stuff that you do in the civilian world, but on base, there's just a little easier, a little more convenient.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Making friends and leaving friends. So yeah, when we travel a lot, we get to make a lot of new friends, but then also because we're traveling a lot, we leave those friends.
Less so for me because I'm an introvert, but she can definitely give you that friendly extrovert side.
I think I've been asked before, like, how hard was it leaving these friends over and over again? You make new friends, you leave them. You make new friends, you leave them. You make and I was one. Yeah, and I was one that I always made friends with people. I had lots of friends, and it always was sad leaving friends. I think I cried every single time we moved. But I always just was excited for that new adventure. I always viewed moving as a new adventure. You're going to get a new room, a new house, a new place, new environment. You know, that was one thing that always drastically changed was our like geographical environment, because we would move like from California to Delaware, from Washington to Guam.
Yeah.
And so that was such an adventure.
Pine forests to the jungles of Guam, from the jungles of Guam to the deserts of Southern California, from the deserts of Southern California to the deciduous green and beaches of Delaware. Yeah. It's just very different.
And then to South Carolina, and there are beaches there, but we live more inland South Carolina.
Sandy, grassy hills and ugly pine trees.
Yeah, a lot of sand and pine trees in that area.
Loads of farms.
Yeah.
The country.
Right. Do you remember it being hard leaving a specific friend? Can you think of?
See, I didn't. When I'm in my younger years, I didn't make close friends. I know this because I'm in a more introvert type personality. I was able to make close friends as an older person. Well, as a teenager, I made a few. I don't remember it being too hard. And again, that might be just me.
Yeah.
Because I know, I'm used to moving. So when it came time to like move to college, move to the military, move back again, I was just like, all right, moving again, I'm going to move on, we'll see these people. And by that time, social media was beginning to become a thing. So I was like, hey, we can still connect.
Right.
And I still do on Facebook have contact with a handful of guys from back in the day. Definitely people I went to college with.
Right.
But yeah, it was an adventure too. I love moving because it was new.
Even coming from an extrovert, someone who does make friends, and I always I made a best friend in every state, that I lived in. I was like, that's my best friend. I always had close friends,
I didn't make best friends till college.
But it was fine. Yes, it's sad moving from friends, but it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I moved on. I was used to it. It was fine. It was life. Just moving and traveling in general. I mean, like we said, the environment that we would move to would be different, but also the culture of the people just in the United States. Like, wow. I remember the first time I felt culture shock was moving from Delaware to South Carolina, which is only a 9-hour difference. That was the biggest culture shock, and I can't say that word. But the reason is because in the South, their culture stuck out the most, I think, to me. For one, that was my teenage years, so I'm a little bit more observant at this age. And everyone down there had such a strong accent that was more prevalent than other accents, like California accents or a northern accent. To me, that was it was more obvious.
It was heavier, yes.
Yeah.
Thicker.
Yeah, and there was just certain things that they would do and say that, like, they're just so different from other places. The things that they would eat and they were passionate about were like, that's odd. Like they liked fatback and weird things, and I was like, that sounds disgusting, but these people are passionate about their fatback, just things like that. They loved hugging you even if you just saw them yesterday. That was one of those things that I was so new to.
Very friendly.
Yeah, very friendly. When you're driving around, if you barely think you recognize somebody, you're going to wave at them,
Well, my impression, and I went to college first from Delaware to Greenville, South Carolina. So I was down there first, but I'm in the mountain territory, but pretty much the same. I'm used to, I don't know, I guess it's northern stuff.
Maybe.
The military culture is more reserved, and it would fit in with the mid-Atlantic and the northern way of doing things. But when you get down to the South, everywhere, everybody's so friendly.
And our family was no longer stationed on base and no longer in that military environment either down there because my dad had retired it before then.
And there would be a difference between if you were living in a community that, hey, this is your home, you probably are going to live here most of your life. Whereas the military, it's a culture of people are moving all the time. So you have this psychology, this mindset of, oh, don't make too close friends necessarily because you're going to leave them, maybe. I don't know.
Except you're me and you just do it anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, psychologically speaking, extroverts need that, are going to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just very impressed with everywhere, literally everywhere you went. It didn't matter who you met. Mm-hmm. Extremely friendly, and I had strangers wave at me. If you make eye contact, it's polite to wave. And then when you deal with store clerks, when you deal with any kind of paperwork in our office, the receptionist, they're so friendly.
Yeah. Now that was definitely another thing friendly. Is that, you know, everyone down there, they give each other pet names to strangers. You know, you're Hun, sweetie, babe, yep. Even though you're a stranger. Now, some people, that occasionally happens in other places too, but in the South, it's very much more regularly.
Yes.
Now, probably the actual biggest culture difference was moving to Guam.
Yep.
But I was so young that I didn't consider it a culture difference because that was the second place I'd ever lived. I was still really, really young. So to me, it was just like, oh, this is cool.
It's a lot of Filipinos, a whole lot of different Asian cultures that kind of mix.
Right.
Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, that all just hodgepodge there. Yeah. Though it definitely seemed like there was a good chunk of Filipinos. Yeah. And almost all of them, because it's a U.S. territory, Guam, almost all of them would eventually, and they do now, because that was from 95 to 97 that we lived in Guam. Yeah. Most of these people are now in the U.S. Yep. They've got their citizenship.
That's usually why they moved to Guam in the first place.
Yeah, so Guam is like the hub in the Pacific for international folk who want to become American. They come there, move to the U.S. territory where they can gain their citizenship and then move over. Most of them. There's some that still live there, but most of them have moved to the U.S.
And then, of course, there's native Guamanians? Is that what
Guamanians, yeah. You can call them Guamanians. The natives of the island are called Chamorros, the Chamorran people. And they did have their own language and everything. But they were also, it's funny, they're super friendly, like the Southerners, but it's different. It's a different kind of openness. For example, all the time, it felt like once a month, once every other month, we're getting invited to these huge parties that somebody's having on the island.
Just in their house.
And the way it works is, if you're the friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, you can be invited. It didn't matter. And literally, 200 to 300 people or more would show up to these parties, and there would be long tables, piled high, buffet style, with all kinds of food.
Like these people would specifically remove furniture from their house and replace it with tables, because they knew people were coming.
It was pretty normal for people to have around their homes lots of extra chairs, folding chairs, tables, because you just did that. You gathered together and you invited everybody. When we did church functions, where we would sometimes do stuff outside, I remember one specific one. We went to the beach and we sat at tables and we set up food.
Yeah.
The church folks are inviting strangers. Hey, come have some food. Come have some food. It's just what you do.
I remember me and my friend, I was at my friend's house in her neighborhood, and we were taking a walk down the street, and there was a neighbor having a party, and they invited us in. And since my friend knew this neighbor, we were like, oh, yeah, sure. So we went in, grabbed some food, and left. We didn't even... And they were, cool with it. That was fine. It wasn't rude for us to go in there, have some food, mingle a little bit, and leave. They were like, cool. Yeah.
And I've talked about that around some Filipino friends that live here in Delaware at my church here in Dover. And they said, yep, that's a Filipino thing. So it's...
So, yeah, that's different.
Out there, like I said, it's jungle. It's a mix, because there's Americans that live there, Guamanians that live there, and, of course, like I said, all the international folk. There's a lot of first world amenities, but there was third world. We drive places, and there would be metal, tin foil kind of
right, or roofs. Little thatched huts and things.
It would be combination of third and first world. Right. Really, all of them, third, first, second world.
I feel like my favorite thing about Guam was definitely the array of beaches.
Ooh, yeah.
Each beach was different.
Right, sandy beaches. At least one brown sandy beach, a couple black sandy beaches,
some pebbly,
rock beaches,
just
all kinds.
So cool.
And then the lagoons, you could walk out.
Yes, that was awesome.
Hundreds of feet. You'd see the big coral reef sticking up past the lagoon. Lagoon is 2 to 4 foot of water where there's coral and fish and stuff, but it's pretty shallow and warm. Really fun to play in.
So fun.
Across the lagoon is where the coral comes up in these big mounds. We're talking 5 to 7 feet high, and then the waves are crashing on those.
Right. So if you were to go beyond that, it would be deep.
That's
all
where
of a
it drops
sudden.
down to the deeper ocean. Yeah.
All right. Well, now let's get to the stereotypes.
Stereotypes.
So we
Yay.
looked up what stereotypes people thought about military lives, military people. So this is from the internet. We're not making up these stereotypes.
Current day.
The first one we found was military wives are unclean, lazy, and uneducated with lots of kids. I did not know that was a stereotype. I mean,
yeah. Our mom definitely wasn't, and all the moms we knew were not.
I never met a military mom because I obviously had lots of military friends. Never met anyone that was like super messy or sloppy. No, like not even kind of like.
Because of the thing we did, we're selling See's chocolate in the neighborhood in California at least.
Yeah.
And then Olympia sales, we went to a lot of people's homes.
Right. And
very
just
nice homes.
From being in the church a lot,
clean.
there was a lot of military families and churches that we would go to. We'd go to other people's friends' houses. Like my best friend when I lived in California, the military family, clean and just, I don't know, normal.
Yep.
That just seems odd to me.
Yeah.
Next one is the military doesn't pay taxes.
Lies.
Definitely a lie.
Oh. Do I have an LES? I could pull up an LES. An LES, this is a form for the military when you get paid. And it's all online now, but you can print them off, and I had some printed off. They definitely took out taxes. They took out all the taxes, the big federal income tax. You pay a little bit into the VA, and I think there was an insurance tax, and then your state tax.
Yeah.
And they did state of residence, so I always paid into South Carolina.
Right.
So yeah, they take taxes.
They do.
Where you don't, the place you don't pay taxes is overseas. Whenever you're deployed, it's one of the little benefits they give you because they want to thank you for being out in a dangerous place, being away from home, away from family. They give you a few extra benefits. You might get a little extra pay depending on where you are. But yes, you do not have to pay taxes when you're overseas. But that's it.
Yeah.
Home stateside, any kind of stateside base, Guam, any place that's U.S. territory. Yeah. You're paying taxes.
The next one is, again, it's about military wives. Wives are stay-at-home moms. I mean, obviously, our mom was a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. I mean, they certainly can be. But I think, there's a lot of wives nowadays that just work, whether their husband's in the military or not. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean that your husband's making so much money that you're stable and you don't have to work. Like, I remember that our mom did go to work at one point because it's still a struggle.
6 kids were getting to be teenagers. At that point, it was dad's a staff sergeant. So think, 1997, 98, staff sergeant pay, family of 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tight.
Yeah.
We did make use of food stamps for a short period of time. She tried different things. She tried to take a job, see if she could hold that down. But she was very good at making sure we were getting the education we needed to at home, as well as the family social time we needed. Yeah. And when she saw that there was problems, she was all right, I'm not going to do that. She tried working at home, which I got the gist because I remember Tupperware parties, Mary Kay stuff,
true. I forgot
like other different things. There were definitely going way back to when I was little group things, entrepreneur
like
at home
that
jobs.
Was very popular with military wives was the stay-at-home job type thing. So like the Mary Kay or MLM type jobs, that I feel like was pretty popular with military
And yes,
wives.
if you're just a couple or you got 1 or 2 kids, yes, your staff or tech sergeant pay and higher is decent. It's really good.
And so the wife probably doesn't need to work, so she might just choose not to. She doesn't have to.
Exactly, she doesn't have to. And then if you're like master sergeant and above, or of course an officer, yes, your pay is really good. And you're going to be living definitely that middle class lifestyle, if not even upper middle class, if you're a higher officer or a high ranking enlisted. But those are rare. There's not that many of those.
Right. Yeah, definitely a lot less. So.
But yeah, staff sergeant and below, it's good pay. It is. But if you have a large family, yes, you might get a little extra for each kid. They do give a little extra. They give an extra for your wife, or at least they used to for each one. I think with the kids they cut it off at a certain number.
Yeah.
But they give you a little extra, but it winds up balancing out because if you have an extra kid, especially as the years go, that's more money. That's more clothes to buy, food.
That
so it's gonna
was the other stereotype was that military families have lots of money and continue to have kids to get extra money. That is just untrue. Yes. Completely not true. I've never heard of a military family having more kids so that they can get more money. It doesn't give you extra money. Yeah. It just evens out.
Because the money they give you is you're going to be using it on your kid. So it's not...
Yeah, they understand these family benefits are for your family to benefit from. So if you have a bigger family, then you need a bigger benefit to help with that. And benefit doesn't mean it's extra spending money. It's literally like you need it.
Yeah, because crib, diapers, food, etc. Especially as they get older, it's nice to have. But and it is. It's a good paying job. But that's all it is a good paying job.
Yeah, I would almost use the word decent. You know what I mean? Like it's
decent. It is decent.
It's not great. It's decent.
Like you might have a little extra money you can set aside for vacations.
Yeah.
Special trips.
And the smarter you are with your money, the better you're going to do. Yeah. Speaking of officers, though, that was the other thing, was that there's a misconception that officers' wives are snooty. All of these have to do with officers' wives. Or wives.
Well,
people want to know about military wives.
But
yeah, officers' wives are snooty. Not from what we've seen from our
the ones we met. I mean, one case we even met the commander's wife. And she was so nice. She was very nice. Yeah. Bought several things for us to help us raise money for we were doing swimming pool and summer camp is what we were trying to do. But yeah, we met. And then I've gone to church with some of them. Yeah. It's just not true.
Yeah, military wives, they're the same as non-military wives. They're just people.
Yeah, if someone's going to be snooty, it's just their personality. It's not, at least in our experience, we didn't see it across the board with military wives. I'm sure there are some. But then for that matter, in so many other categories, you can find snooty people. Yeah.
Well, that's... Oh, there's one more. That one, yeah. Military spouses cheat is a misconception.
It's not a big deal anyway.
It does happen, but it also happens if you're not military, too. It's not something that happens so much that you can just generalize and say that you're likely it's going to happen. No. Like,
people might make assumptions. And I was 6 years in the Air Force from 2007 to 2013, and we heard about it, but all the different we had a shop of around 40 guys, and that would vary. So I probably got to know, I don't know, 200 some guys or whatever. Besides the greater CE group, because the civil engineer was my squadron, several hundred guys, and we heard stories, but I don't remember if that happened in our squadron. If it did, it'd be like 1 or 2 times. Because, these aren't all people with a high, religious standard. In fact, most of the guys I worked with didn't really care about religion. Yeah. But they were good, generally good moral people, because, if a person's willing to sacrifice for their country, join the military, that's kind of a certain caliber. Yeah. So you do have, at least in past years, that has been true. Yeah. You have a good caliber of people that work.
Cheating on your spouse is a moral issue, and I don't think that if you're in the military, you're more likely to be immoral. I don't see the correlation there.
I didn't when we were in, and definitely not when we were younger. We never heard about that.
I mean, I'm guessing that maybe this assumption comes from people assuming that the men that are going off on overseas are going to take advantage of themselves being not home. Maybe that's what they're trying to refer to.
Sure, some might, but it wasn't a big thing.
That's not something.
It's the exception. It's not the rule.
Yeah, again, that's just a morality issue from that person, not this happens because you're military, you're more likely to cheat. No.
I think there was one other category of being Air Force.
Yes.
Air Force versus the other branches. We had to talk about that.
Right.
Go ahead, give your...
I definitely had this notion that Air Force was the best, and that was because that's what my dad was in, And that was really the only branch I knew anything about up until I was a teenager. I just, I don't even know that I realized that the National Guard was part of the military until I got older, because it was like Air Force, Air Force, Air Force. Mm-hmm. Was there, the reason you decided to go into Air Force, was it because Dad was in the Air Force?
It was the factors that, yes, that would have been a factor. And from what I could tell, just from looking briefly online, talking to my dad, talking to others, there was a better overall set of benefits and career enhancements kind of sort of thing going into the Air Force. It was just what I was familiar with. I guess would have been the big controlling factor for why I joined. It was I'm familiar with this. My dad, my family was in 20 years. So I can do this, and I did. There was a lot of things that was easy to transition into. After being 6 years active duty, I now know that there are some things that are the same, and there are some things that are different. It's just because of the nature of the Navy has ships; they're at sea, and so they can be out there. The Army, it's a pretty good sized force, but whenever we have any kind of overseas active duty operations, they're over there en masse, so they'll be there for a long time. Whereas the Air Force, being in the air, we're more support, so our deployments are shorter. That'd be a benefit. And now when it came to like family stuff, just when you compare all the little details, all the things that the bases, that the Air Force community, the different branches of their communities, how they took care of each other, the Air Force just does the most. I'm not sure why. That's just how it is. From what I heard, the Navy would be about second best, and then the Marines and the Army are down there. It's not like they're horrible. They're good.
Right.
Obviously, people are joining them and they're enjoying their stay and their time in there. It's just, and our brother Jared could tell us about the Army.
Jared's in the Army. Jacob and his wife
were in the
Marines. And then Joseph and John, Air Force.
Air Force, and
Yep.
my dad.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, they do say that being in the Air Force has the best benefits. It's the nephew.
Yeah, my son's done watching his movie, and I think we're done answering
Yeah, I
our
think
questions.
we did finish.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that was helpful. Again, if you have any other questions for us as military brats and as a person that was a military brat and joined the military, definitely leave them in the comments below. And if you have any other suggestions for more collab videos, leave that in the comments below too. Well, I think that's it for today.
All right,
Bye.
thanks for watching.